Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly chilling regional folklore narrative to understand the sheer mechanics of fear, ritual, and vengeance. This is one of those stories that just masterfully blends supernatural terror with very real, very human tragedies. We're going to look directly at the source material to see exactly how cultural beliefs intersect with a calculated, deeply dark retribution. Let's get right into it. Okay, so picture this. Sheer, paralyzing terror gripping a small, isolated village. The source text actually opens with a young man walking home near midnight, and his body is literally drenched in sweat the second he gets near the local well. He's desperate to just disappear, right? Praying for safety. But then he hears the sound of anklets, and this veiled woman appears. In an absolute instant, she twists his neck. And this paralyzing fear? It's the baseline reality for the community, mostly because this young man wasn't the first. In just 2 short months, there have been 5 mysterious, incredibly gruesome deaths right near this well. Victims are just found completely lifeless, struck down in the dark. The entire village is gripped by this overwhelming nocturnal terror. No humans, no animals are spared if they wander near that well after dark. So to explain these horrifying midnight encounters, the panicked locals immediately turn to what they know best, which is their traditional beliefs. And that brings us to part 1, the Sati Asra lore. Because when faced with an inexplicable string of violent deaths, the community naturally assigns a cultural framework to the horror, just to try and make some sense of it all. Now, the specific belief they latch onto here is absolutely fascinating. The villagers are entirely convinced that the well is haunted by a Sati Asra. In their local lore, a Sati Asra is a spirit that resides near water bodies. Things like wells or rivers, and they're generally regarded as a form of a deity. So the villagers believe this deity has just been angered, and her sudden violent outbursts are basically a demand for respect and appeasement. Desperate to just survive, they implement a whole series of appeasements. They actually go as far as constructing a small shrine at the well, though pointedly without an idol inside it. They offer daily food, or bog, to try and calm her wrath, and they even enforce a super strict village-wide curfew after sunset. They're doing everything right according to their traditions. But, as we'll see, their cultural explanation completely misdiagnoses the true threat, because the deaths, they don't stop. So here is where this massive dramatic irony really hits. On one side, you've got the villagers actively praying to an angry local deity, right? Offering food and reverence. But on the other side is the really dark truth. They are praying to a ghost that someone else intentionally engineered for murder. It is not some random angry god. It's a deliberately summoned, highly vengeful spirit awakened through a very specific, very dark ritual. Which leads us straight into part 2, the Dark Awakening Ritual. To understand what's actually haunting the village well, we have to shift our timeline back exactly 3 months prior to the height of the village's panic, straight to a secret midnight ceremony that set this whole thing into motion. Just look at the incredibly calculated, clinical nature of this summoning. Executed by a mysterious woman in black named Maya, the ritual kicks off at exactly 2:30 a.m., and it is highly structured. First, she sets up a fire pit. Then, she brings a rooster with its limbs and beak bound with rope, ultimately sacrificing it with a single strike of a sharp knife. She then uses an actual human skull to pour the animal's blood into the fire, repeatedly chanting mantras. She demands the spirit awaken, basically refusing to leave until it finally does. Eventually, the spirit does emerge from the well, appearing as a woman in a veil, and Maya gives her explicit command. Go and finish them. I want my revenge. Listen, Maya isn't trying to appease a deity here. She is straight up weaponizing a soul. She's giving this awakened entity a very specific, highly lethal directive. And the spirit, who has basically been waiting for this exact command, immediately marches toward the village. And that takes us to part 3, a targeted vengeance. Because once unleashed, the spirit doesn't just attack anyone. It completely bypasses all these random villagers sleeping in their homes and marches with absolute purpose toward one specific household. This isn't random supernatural chaos at all. It's a highly targeted vengeance. The pacing of these deaths is just methodical and relentless. At 3 a.m., the spirit knocks on a door. A man named Mongol answers, the veil drops, and he's killed instantly. Then, exactly 13 days later, right after Mongol's funeral rites are officially completed, his brother Rajesh hears that exact same knock at 3 a.m. He opens the door just so he doesn't wake his mother, and boom, he is killed before he can even scream. And then, just a day after Rajesh's rites are completed, the mother is found dead in the courtyard. The entire family and all of its heirs are completely wiped out. Now, the source material doesn't shy away from the absolute brutality of these attacks. It uses these incredibly gruesome physical details to emphasize the sheer rage of this entity. Victims, starting with Mangal, are found with their necks violently twisted in a single snap. But honestly, worse than that, their facial flesh is brutally torn and gouged out, almost as if by a wild beast. And the spirit's own eyes are described as completely inverted, leaving literally only the terrifying white pupils visible. But this raises a massive question for our explainer today. We see the methodical timeline, we see the visceral, horrific marks left on the bodies. But what could this family have possibly done to deserve this absolute level of supernatural fury? I mean, why Mangal, Rajesh, and their mother? Well, to answer that, we have to peel back the final narrative layer in Part 4, the tragic backstory revealed. We actually have to go back even further to an event that happened 4 months prior to the haunting, way before the ritual and before the village panic. At this point, the horror completely shifts from the supernatural to something deeply, tragically human. We learn about a young woman named Manju. Her husband, who was the eldest son of that targeted family, had just passed away shortly after their wedding. Plunged into this terrible grief, the young widow locks herself in her room, just weeping. But the sanctity of her mourning is violently interrupted when her own bedroom door is literally broken down by 2 men. Those 2 men, they're her brothers-in-law, Mangal and Rajesh, and they deliver this absolutely horrifying justification saying, "Our brother is dead, now we have a right over you." It's a chilling quote that reveals the predatory, immediate domestic abuse she was facing. They're described as laughing like demons, advancing on her, fully intending to violate her honor the very moment their brother is gone. Pushed to the absolute brink, Manju refuses to just be a victim. She actually fights them off, shoving them away to protect herself, and flees the house right into the dark village. Mangal and Rajesh chase her. And seeing absolutely no other escape from her abusers, Manju runs to the village well and jumps in, drowning herself. The brothers just flee, basically relieved she's dead so they won't be blamed. And that well, the very site of her tragic death, becomes the epicenter of the village's future nightmare. Suddenly, all the pieces connect, right? It's like a giant puzzle coming together. The veiled ghost with the twisted, decaying face is Manju, the widow who jumped into the well to escape a horrific assault. And the mysterious woman in black who summoned her, that is Maya, Manju's younger sister. Maya knew exactly why her sister died and exactly who was responsible, and she used dark tantric arts to bring her sister back to execute justice. Which brings us to our final section, Part 5, The Price of Revenge. The core thematic lesson of this text is that vengeance is a fire that simply cannot be controlled. Maya achieved her goal, right? The abusive brothers and the complicit household were totally eradicated. But the story doesn't end there. The narrative takes this incredibly dark, chaotic turn. Manju's spirit, having successfully killed her abusers, just doesn't return to rest. She actually goes rogue and begins attacking innocent bystanders. The text highlights this terrifying moment where a completely innocent man, just riding his bicycle near the well at night, hears the anklets. The spirit appears, he falls off his bike in sheer terror, and she brutally tears the flesh from his body. Her screams literally echo through the entire village. Witnessing this completely senseless murder, Maya's absolutely horrified. She rushes back to the well to perform another ritual, desperately trying to stop the monster she created. She's pleading with her sister's spirit, saying, "Your revenge is complete. You must calm down now. Why are you sacrificing the villagers?" But the lamp blows out. The spirit appears, furious, staring down the very sister who summoned her. Maya realizes, way too late, that the tantric methods she used have made the spirit's rage completely boundless. She flees back to her room, completely terrified. But the timeline catches up to her. At exactly 1:30 a.m., there is a knock at Maya's door. The ultimate consequence of that dark ritual has arrived right at her own front steps. She slowly opens the door, and the spirit of her sister stands before her. Maya begs for her life, right? Reminding Manju that she only woke her up so she could get her revenge in the first place. But as the source text explicitly states, and honestly this is absolutely crucial to take away, after death, a spirit is loyal to no one. The veil drops, and Manju's spirit reaches out, violently breaking her own sister's neck in a single snap. The text delivers its chilling thesis right here. The uncontrollable, all-consuming nature of revenge ultimately destroys even the one who initiated it. According to the folklore, the terrified villagers ultimately abandoned the entire area, relocating just to save their own lives. But the spirit in the red veil, she still wanders that deserted village, killing literally anyone who crosses her path. So, we're going to leave you with this thought as we wrap up our explainer today. Look at how human cruelty birthed a supernatural plague. Does vengeance ever truly end, or does it merely find new victims to consume? It's a haunting reminder that some fires, once lit, simply cannot be put out. Thanks for hanging out with me on this deep dive.